Howdy there, Silver Mongoose back with another quarterly update on my Year of Wii experience challenge, what have you. And I cannot believe it's July. It's already halfway through the year. I got a new batch of games to talk to you all about. Overall, though, I have been playing less, and that's just because things have been taking up my time. Since the last update, gardening started, and gardening takes up a lot of my time during the hotter months. And I've been playing fewer new games because some of the games that I talked about in my last update, my first quarterly update, like Animal Crossing or Puzzle Kingdoms or Exorbeat, I'm still picking those up on occasion. I thought I was kind of done with Animal Crossing, but other than I'd say maybe the past couple weeks where I've been really busy, I was still playing every couple of days, even for a few minutes here and there. So obviously if I'm still playing stuff from the last update, that leaves less time for newer games. Alright, so let's start off with the question, did I only play the Wii for these past 3 months? And like the first quarter, the answer is no, but I would say this time I barely played anything else. I did play a few demos for Wii U and 3DS, because as most of you probably know, the eShop is closing down, and I wanted to buy some games before they stopped taking credit cards, and I didn't want to, waste my money, so I played some demos before I made some purchases. And also, buying and selling games, that sort of stuff. I usually test out the game for a few minutes here and there. I did also play a couple Switch games with family, a couple games called Boomerang Fu and Bonito Days, both of which were a lot of fun. And the big one is probably a friend wanted to start Kingdom Hearts. So we've been playing through the HD 1.5 mix, and then immediately after we started that, they announced Kingdom Hearts 4, which was a funny coincidence. And then after beating 1.5 mix, started Rechain of Memories. I shouldn't say we started, because basically I'm just watching them play. I'd say maybe between those two games there was between 50 and 60 hours of gameplay, and I think of those 50 hours I might have played maybe 2 just when they go to the bathroom or something, or there's a frustrating part and they just want to take a break and we swap off for a couple minutes. So between all of those games that I mentioned, demos and Kingdom Hearts and Switch games, I'd be really surprised if it was more than 5 hours total. So I feel confident saying, yeah, I basically only played the Wii. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the actual Wii games that I played. The first is Nick's Quest, Kindred Spirits, and this was a pretty early WiiWare game that was made just by a handful of people. At first glance, the graphics and physics that you're seeing kind of make it feel like it's going to be like a really basic phone game. You just do this character kind of jumping around, moving from left to right. But I ended up picking this up back before the Wii store closed. I don't know. I think it was some of the stark graphics and some of the levels that attracted me, and I just thought, what the heck, I'll just buy it and give it a go. Despite it not looking the greatest, I do think the gameplay really shines through. It kind of has this gameplay where most of the time you are just playing this character where you jump and fly and glide around, and that's okay. But you also use the Wiimote and the pointer to move blocks and platforms and control fire and wind, that sort of stuff. So there are times where you have to simultaneously do those two things. So you will be jumping through spiked platforms with your left hand, and then using your right hand with the Wiimote, you are carefully controlling a fireball through a maze. And, as the character moves, the camera moves, so then you have to pay attention to what the fireball is doing. So you're kind of, at times, using kind of both halves of your brain to do things separately. I thought that was a unique experience and a lot of fun. I'm sure other games have done it, but this is the first one I can think of where it was really a big part of the game. I got really close to the end of this game, but I just got frustrated and quit. I was in the last probably 5 or 10 minutes of the game, and I couldn't do it. I think there's a 2-player version of this game where one person kind of controls the elements and the other person controls the character, and that actually might help. But I don't know. I feel like I had a good experience with it, and I might not go back and even try. Obviously, because this is a WiiWare game, you can't just go and pick it up on the eShop anymore. It's closed down, but there are other ways to play. I think also it might have been ported to some other platforms like Android or something. I can't tell you how good those are, because you don't have a Wiimote and a nunchuck, but I don't know. Maybe it's cheap or and it's worth checking out. I don't know. So the next game I started was Dance Dance Revolution Hottest Party. There are quite a few DDR games on the Wii. The only ones I don't have, I think, are Winx Club and the Disney Grooves, and I am not interested in either of those. You folks know how DDR works. You step on a gamepad, arrows move down, and you match them up. There's not too much to say about this version particularly, I suppose. I do wish, like basically all home versions of DDR, that it had more of that like Japanese techno and less of just pop songs. So I'd say a quarter of the music's not bad and the rest is like, whatever. But that's kind of how I've always felt about home DDR games. And another complaint I kind of have, which is again not specific to this DDR game, is that the combos and points, which sometimes you need to get a lot of to progress through the levels and unlock more songs, I find that they're really heavily based on getting continuous notes, like not missing a single one. And when you're using a home gamepad, it's sometimes easy for the gamepad not to register, or the gamepad slips or something, and then you miss, one note, and that ends up kind of ruining your entire combo. So I do wish that the points weren't so heavily based on that. But again, that's kind of like all home DDR games. One thing I can say about this specific version is that it has a couple like annoying UI and menu choices. One is that they have this setting for turning off gimmicks, which is like, little curveballs they'll throw your way in the middle of a level, like a spike or something like that. And the other one is using hand movements, and whenever I play DDR, I don't want to do hand movements or deal with gimmicks, so I always turn it off. But for this version, unless I'm doing something wrong, every time you start the game, you have to go into the menu and turn those off individually. And if you're playing with multiple characters, I think you have to turn them off for multiple players too. There's also no pause or quit song that I can figure out. Again, these aren't like in-depth reviews. This is just kind of off the cuff what I'm thinking. So maybe I'm wrong about both of those. But, overall, it's a serviceable DDR game. And once I, kind of exhaust my interest with this one, I'll move on to the next. Next up is the Munchables. This is a game that I've wanted to play basically since it came out. I believe it was a budget game, so kind of started at $30 or whatever, and I don't think I've ever seen it dip below that in the whole time that I've been kind of looking out for it. It's kind of stayed steady, and I don't know if I ever saw it in the wild, and if I did, it was probably way overpriced. So it took me a while to track it down and to finally sit down and start playing it. I've seen a lot of people compare the gameplay to Katamari, but I think the concept is a lot more like Shark on the Intellivision, if anyone remembers that game. If not, you've probably played a dozen Flash games like it, where you're a tiny fish and you have to eat smaller fish to grow so you can eat slightly larger fish, and just keep doing that. And if you try to eat something that's larger than you, then you lose points or die or something like that. That's kind of what this game is, where you're going around the level, eating the enemies, and between most levels, they range between like 0 and 100, but sometimes they can get much more than that. Because of that huge range, they do list what the character's power level is above their head, which at first I thought was annoying, but I got used to it really quickly. Some levels start like, this level starts at level 50 or something like that, which is nice to add a little bit of variety. But similar to Katamari, you do grow as you eat, and whenever you grow, like the world kind of shrinks around you, and then so if you start at level 1, you can't reach a platform, but by the time you're level 50, you're big enough that you can just jump on top of that platform and continue. And it's kind of satisfying to watch the world like shrink around you as you get bigger. The enemy design is like really great. All the enemies are themed after like fruits and vegetables, so they have like a kung fu broccoli guy or birds that are cabbages, that sort of stuff. You can really tell that the game was made by the same people as as Tamagotchi. Some of the music and the cutesy cutscenes and the references to poop really makes it feel like, yeah, Namco made this. I do have to say, though, the main character design is pretty awful. Overall, though, I recommend checking this game out. The only caveat is that, as you can probably tell by the gameplay on the screen, it's fairly simple, so it might bore some players that are older or like more complicated games. But for me, this was like a nice game to every few days just sit down and play one level or two, just kind of relax. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was up my alley. As I mentioned in my last update, I was interested in starting Aragorns Quest. The concept is really interesting, where you are playing Samwise's son, named Frodo, inside the Shire as they kind of set up for a festival or something. So you can run around and play fair games and help with quests or whatever, and then you can go talk to your dad and he'll tell you a chapter basically of like Lord of the Rings through Aragorn's viewpoint. So, then you can play as Aragorn and slash around with your sword and that kind of stuff and go through the games, or go through all 3 movies, I should say. But what's kind of neat about it is that at some point you can kind of just pause Aragorn's quest and go back to be Frodo back at the back at the fair and run around the Shire and stuff. So it's really interesting, like, concept that like Aragorn's story is being told to you by Samwise, and they did get the voice actor Sean Astin to do all Samwise's parts, which is cool. And I think they also had the person who does the voice for Gimli come back, which is great. Everyone else is either like some voiced by somebody who sounds kind of similar, or it's just clips taken from the movies. And that can be a little bit jarring because I know the movies well enough that, I can tell, like, yeah, this is ripped directly from the movie. But, for the most part, I think it's done pretty well. I'm about halfway through the game, and I've had some dips of enjoyment here and there, but there were some parts I was really into. The Mines of Moria is like my favorite part of the trilogy, so that was a lot of fun to play through. It has, drop in, drop out co-op, which I haven't done, but I always appreciate. There's lots of like upgrades to find, items that you can buy to boost. It'll say, plus 10% against orcs, like that sort of stuff, or get 1% more money, like all these like tiny little upgrades that kind of keep you searching and wanting to find more money. That's another interesting concept, is the money, is that if you're Frodo playing in the Shire, you can collect money, but then whenever you start playing as Aragorn, he has that money, which is nice. So it's, some magical money transportation, but it is nice that they do kind of connect those a little bit. And what's good, too, is if you don't really care about the parts in the Shire, you can kind of just rush through the necessary stuff and not really play around. But I spent a couple hours running around and doing side quests when I first started. I think the main downside to people is that, like, if you're a fan of, like, the GameCube games, this is obviously a very simplified, cartoony version of that. The gameplay's a little bit simpler. The graphics are definitely simpler. It looks like, I don't know, World of Warcraft or something with lots of bloom. I kind of appreciate the art style. Overall, I would say, like, it's a pleasant game experience, and, like, it's a really interesting twist on a story that we've heard before. So I would say, like, if you're a big Lord of the Rings fan, but you don't mind playing, simpler, more cartoony games, I think it's worth checking out. It's also on other systems, so you can check it out on those if you don't want to use, the Wiimote. And the final new game I started was Rune Factory Tides of Destiny. I was sort of feeling like, doing some farming, but I didn't want to, play a non-Wii game and play something like Stardew Valley, so I decided I'd pick up this Rune Factory game, which I hadn't played before. The first one, Rune Factory Frontier on the Wii, was, one that I enjoyed, but it was, a bit of a slog, but I enjoyed my time with it, so I was looking forward to starting this one kind of in a new environment. All I really knew about it was that there were kind of islands and some different areas to explore. But so far, I think maybe, within game I might be a couple weeks in, maybe not even that much, but it's not really what I expected. Maybe things will change. So the game largely consists of 2 things from what I see so far. One is just doing tasks for people. They want you to go find a flower somewhere, so you bring it to them, that sort of thing. Which is a little bit clunky to navigate how that works. And the other one is kind of, I guess, the hook of the game, which is you walk around the ocean in like a giant like stone golem. You know, you direct the golem to like find islands and bring them up out of the ocean, and then you can go onto the islands and like fight creatures. Some of them you can tame just like in the previous game, but at least so far, I mean, maybe I'm kind of doing stuff incorrectly because I'm not looking anything up, but so far there's no farming. You know, I can tame animals, but mostly it's just like fighting people, looking for islands, and doing tasks. I feel like maybe the game will open up, you know, in another couple hours or something, and I'll have those other elements, but currently, like, I'm not feeling it, and I don't know if I'm going to actually continue it. Probably the thing that I like the most is the nostalgia of the noises for, like, going through menus and stuff, because they are the same as in the previous Rune Factory game, and I put in, you know, well over 100 hours in that one, so I don't know. So far, I wish there was more farming. Maybe it'll come down the road, but I don't know if I'm going to give it enough of a chance to do that. You know, I'm kind of at the point with Wii games, specifically, you know, this year, where just like if I start something and I don't, you know, I'm not really feeling it, then I'll just move on to something else. You know, life's too short to play games you're not super into. And there were a couple other games that I played with family, just, you know, here and there whenever I saw them. We played a little bit of Wii Party, which is one that I missed back in the day, but I got it a couple years ago, and I've been enjoying my time with it. In a sense, it's kind of a better Mario Party than the Mario Parties on the Wii. I wasn't crazy about those. It does have some unique games that you wouldn't see in Mario Party. I wouldn't say it's, you know, a AAA title or anything, but it definitely has some fun games that can be enjoyed with a group, and, you know, things that are done interestingly, like you lay down a bunch of Wiimotes, and then one of them will make like a cat sound, and you have to grab that one before someone else does. So it kind of does stuff with Wiimote a little bit, and obviously motion controls and that sort of stuff. And it's got a nice little island mode where you're kind of climbing like a volcano on an island to get to the top, and I don't know. I think it's fun to pick up every now and then. And the other one, we played a little bit of Kirby's Return to Dreamland, which I think now probably has significantly less appeal now that Forgotten Lands is out. Now that Kirby has like a big 3D adventure, it's probably tough for people to go back to like the slower 2D style. I remember when this came out, even then it did feel a little bit stale. You know, you're like, okay, it's Kirby, you know, left to right, suck things up, eat powers. You know, it didn't seem terribly unique. Like the hook that they have for it, the gimmick is like this giant power mechanic. So you find a giant sword and you get to slash and break bricks and stuff. It's kind of like the Mega Mushroom, I guess, in New Super Mario Brothers. And you know, it's okay. Some people like it, but I'm not too crazy about the big the big items. So overall, like, it's not my favorite Kirby game, but it's fun and it's pleasant. It's just, I think it's tougher to recommend after Forgotten Lands have come out. But if you're, you know, a big Kirby fan and you like the 2D stuff, like, there's nothing wrong with this game. Like, it's a solid B+, but it doesn't break new ground, that's for sure. And that's it for what I've been playing this quarter. I have been playing less, but it's not because I haven't been enjoying doing this. It's just I've had less time to do it. You know, I'm still genuinely, like, really into this challenge. I'm still enjoying playing Wii games, playing new stuff, replaying old stuff just for fun, and just really immersing myself in the system. One thing I'm not enjoying is that, man, this year is going by fast. It feels, and I guess doing quarterly updates makes it feel a little bit faster, because I kind of always have that in my mind that I'll say this in the next update sort of thing, and then I have to, you know, spend a bunch of time doing the videos. And at this rate, you know, at the end of the year, I'm probably still going to have a big stack of unplayed Wii games. And, you know, that's okay. I'm not somebody who has to, you know, clear a backlog or something like that. But it does make me think a little bit of, like, man, even if I'm doing this, like, how many years would it take me to actually play all my Wii games? I don't know. Maybe that's something to look at the end of the year. I can do the math and figure that out. And, you know, 3 months later, admittedly, I still have the itch to get a Switch. Just seeing my siblings play games and talk about them, and there being so much cool stuff, like new games and collections and indie games announced, has been has been tempting. We just just had a Nintendo Direct Mini that had some cool stuff announced. Whenever I was watching my friend play Rechain of Memories, which is card-based, I was thinking, like, man, you know what this makes me want to play is Mega Man Battle Network. And then a Direct Mini came out and said, hey, we're doing a Battle Network collection. So, that's been something that I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to get that. So maybe by the end of the year, if I can sell a few items and make up the cost, I will finally dip into getting a Switch. But overall, still having fun. Have no plans to give up this challenge. I hope that this was interesting to some of you and you learned a little bit about some games that you may not have already played. If you have any thoughts on any of the games that I talked about, or any Wii games that I should be playing, or some of your favorites, anything like that, always feel free to toss a comment down below. And this has been Silver Mongoose Videos. Remember, classic gaming never gets old.